payroll certification.
I'll move it.
Moved by Nick,
Second.
second by Barb. All in favor?
Aye.
2.2, recommend approval of petty cash.
I'll
I'll
move.
I have
move
a
it.
motion. Moved by Nick, second by Barb.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Item 2.3, recommend approval of resolution for sabbatical leaves.
Move.
Moved by Barb, second by,
I'll
Nick?
second it. Yep.
all in favor? Aye. 2.4, recommend approval of resolution for continuing unpaid leave of absence for SOSTAC.
Move.
Moved
Second.
by Barb, second by Nick, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
2.5, recommend approval of resolution for continuing unpaid leave of absence, Briga. Can I have a motion?
I'll move it.
Moved by Nick, second by Barb, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Recommend approval of resolution to submit SUNY Broome's proposed 2020, 2021 operating budget to the county executive and the Broome County Legislature.
Move.
Moved by Barb, second by
I'll second it.
Nick, all in favor? Aye.
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 2.7, recommend approval of resolution for capital improvement program request to Broome County for the years 2021 through 2025.
I just had a question, Michael. When I read over this, the budget, submitting the budget and the fund balance, I thought that the governor wanted fund balances used.
So in his, in the guidance, that they really want us, the colleges, next week to really document to them what the fund balance positions are and what our cash position is going to be. I didn't recall that they, at this point, want us to use fund balance, but I think as we develop the two scenarios of both a 10% state aid cut to our FTEs and the 25% cut to our state aid, to the extent that you can't identify other measures to ensure a balanced budget. I think one option you have available is fund balance. My personal opinion on that is I think that becomes a short-term fix, and to the extent that the state decides to cut the college's state aid, to tap fund balance isn't going to be a sustainable option if that state aid cut occurs both, for example, this year, because the discussion is that the state, the rationale for it is, over the next 90 days while the state is shut down, that's going to be their most significant fiscal gap, especially related to the revenue side, sales tax, property tax, sales tax and income tax. So, my concern is if the state imposes the state aid cut both this year and next year and the subsequent year, if I'm making up a number here, if you decided that you needed $1 million to $2 million of fund balance, you'd need that in the base, for up to 2 to 3 years. Well, the fund balance is at 5 million, give or take. You'd sweep the entire fund balance over the course of 3 years. So, we're really taking a very hard look at if we're not going to get structural revenue, then we really got to take a hard look at structurally reducing the cost side of the equation. you know, that the current fund balance position is a little over a month of cash flow for our bills. You take, you know, about 50 million and divide it by 12 months, and you're at, you know, over 4 million a month in terms of cash flow. So I think it's one option that's available. You know, we'll just have to review it as we really develop the budget scenario plans.
We also
Kevin,
know
you
what the county's going to do. You know, at this point, you know, whether they'll, you know, be able to continue with maintenance of effort, and, you know, that has a whole bunch of cascading issues go along with it if county doesn't maintain effort on, you know, on the budget, which they may not be able to do. One of the southern tier counties, I don't know which one, has already laid off 77 people. I don't know if our county has laid off yet. So, you know, that's another lever, you know, that still has to be pulled.
How do layoffs,
for all 30?
how do layoffs work at the college with unions?
Well, it's all contractual. You know, you have bumping rights in ESPA. That's the main thing there. And we can, you know, with the middle management union, with the guild, you know, we can eliminate positions based on the president's discretion. There is a payout if we're not in exigency for anyone, depending on how long they've been here and what contract was in force when they were hired. Some have as much as a year payout. Some have 3 or 6 months, depending on how long ago what contract they were hired into. The longer they've been here, the longer the payout is how it went. And then the union is either retrenchment and eliminating faculty positions, and that has a whole host of costs that go along with it over the course of about 2 years, unless we reach exigency, and then all bets are off, and then we can do whatever we think makes the most sense and deal, you know, with the pushback, you know, which will certainly come.
I guess the question I would have with declining enrollment, with the PPP delayed based on your last email, and with, if we do go into fund balance, when do you guys make a decision on when does that occur? That we look at reducing staff, similar to other corporations or other entities that are doing that?
Well, that's a good question. SUNY's asked us not to do anything until the end of the month. They can't require it of us the way they can the state ops, but that's the benchmark SUNY has put out for everyone, and is most everyone, other than part-time staff, where, you know, almost all of our part-time staff is gone. So there's fairly substantial savings there. When work ran out, the part-time jobs ran out.
Do you know how many employees that was?
Any idea, Michael? It's a lot.
Yeah, I'd have to get back to you on the number of employees. When we ran last payroll, it was only part of the part-time employees. So we're running payroll is again this Friday. So I'll have better information and can provide the board information relative to that.
Okay.
Kevin, normal contracts, almost all contracts I've ever seen have provisions in there for acts of God. In other words, if you have to furlough faculty or lay them off for a period of time, stuff like that. Does the faculty contract have something like that? I mean, it would have to be in there somewhere.
I don't believe ours does. Lynn, can you recall?
It's not familiar, but I'm happy to check it out.
I mean, this is absolutely an act of God. So something that's totally out of your total control. And,
Yes,
and how could you?
Albany's, you know, made it clear that, you know, that until we reach a point where we're in exigency, they want us to, you know, to follow all the contracts.
Oh, okay. All right. That doesn't make sense, though.
It is what it is.
Okay.
And
Any other?
Nick, I think under, you know, typical standard professional services contracts, you know, you have that force majeure, which I think represents what you're
Exactly.
referring to, but typically the labor agreements, at least that I'm familiar with, don't have that type of language in them. And, you know, as Dr. Drum referred, especially with the faculty association contract, to the extent that you have a compelling case, which could include acts of God or, you know, other extraordinary unforeseen events, then you just got to go through this rather protracted process associated with layoffs and retrenchment. You know, a couple of the other agreements have other processes, but typically not language that's similar in concept to what you're referring to in terms of force majeure.
And there are some emergency provisions, you know, that we're all just, you know, living with, and people have been good about it. For instance, you know, putting all of our courses online in March, you know, under ordinary circumstances, that would have cost us millions of dollars to, you know, to do that in the, you know, in the contract. But because we're in a state of emergency, it's either do that or you can't teach, you got to quit. So that we're, you know, we are working under some emergency provisions, and the same for summer. The big question mark is fall right now.
Thank you.
Okay, going back to 2.7, can I have a motion?
I'll move.
Moved by Barb,
Second.
second by Nick. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
2.8, recommend approval of resolution authorized carryover of unused 2019-2020 vacation accrual as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Any idea what that is? What that
Yeah,
is?
I did try to explain it a bit in one of my updates a week or so ago. What, you know, we have a cap on the amount of vacation people can carry over, and there's also a cap on what can be paid out, and that we're not removing that. But I'm afraid that this summer we'll be scrambling to do what we need to do for fall, no matter what it is, whether we're all online, as some institutions have already announced, you know, whether we're back in the saddle to some extent with social distancing and whatever else, or it's a hybrid, you know, which to me would be the ideal, is to be the hybrid. I've been trying to push us in that direction for 10 years. But again, there's historically been costs associated with that, with getting courses online. People are not going to have time to take vacation or much vacation. And if they're stepping up and doing whatever they got to do to get the college back up to full speed for September, I hate to penalize them and have them lose a vacation. People can take vacation, great, if it works out. I'm just afraid we're all going to be scrambling because I don't suspect most of the restrictions are going to be lifted till June. And I'd hate to penalize people, you know, who really felt that they needed to work and not use their vacation, because typically people are scrambling in the summer to use vacation or they lose it. So just for this year, I thought it'd be kind of a slap in the face for those who feel they really can't take time off this summer.
Could you just explain that to me, Kevin? In other words, Joe Smith has 3 weeks vacation coming. We're closed and everything, and he can carry that 3 weeks vacation now over into the next year.
Yeah, if you only have 3 weeks, you can carry it over. If you have 6 weeks, you can't. You can carry over roughly 6 weeks. You lose everything else.
What happens the following year? Do you get that 6 weeks again?
Yeah, you could carry over only a maximum of about 6 weeks.
Okay.
And you can only be paid for those 6 weeks, generally speaking. If you retire in August, then it's a little different before you lose your vacation.
Okay.
Dr. Drum, in your comment there, when will the college make a decision if the fall is online or whether you're back to school? Do you guys wait till like
when we see what the
August,
restrictions are?
July? Or
yeah, when we see what the restrictions are, I'm guessing, the sooner the better for marketing purposes. So we can't do much right now until April 30th, or May 15th, which is the governor's current benchmark. So we're kind of in a holding pattern, until May 15th. Now you did loosen, if you can put your boat in the water now, so marinas are going to be allowed to open. I don't know if they'll loosen up any other restrictions between now and May 15th, but maybe some construction restrictions will be lifted, shortly. I've been hearing rumors. Be good for us and, and a lot of people. I think certain projects would be fine, others would be more dangerous. So we're kind of stuck in a holding pattern at least till May 15th, which is tough for spring marketing, but that's where we are.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Can I have a motion on 2.8?
I'll move it.
Moved by Nick. Barb, are you frozen up there or you second it?
I think she's frozen.
All right, I'll second it. Barb, wait, raise your hand if you're in favor, but I can't see you because you're frozen.
There, she's
There she
back.
goes.
She's
I'm
back.
here.
Okay,
Did you hear me say I'll move?
no. All right, you'll move, Nick second it. All in
2.8,
favor?
right?
Yeah,
Aye.
2.8. Moved by Barb, second by Nick. All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
There's Margaret.
Good morning, Margaret.
Where is she? I don't see her.
It says iPhone on my computer.
Yeah, mine too.
She's muted though.
Yeah, well, her picture was there for a second. She must be having bandwidth issues more than Barb's having.
Okay.
Okay. All right, informational items, 3.1, President's Report, Dr. Drum.
Yeah, just fairly quickly, since you've received all my updates, and I'll say more on Thursday. But I can't say enough about how our faculty and staff have stepped up for this. The scramble to go out on March 18th, where March 19th was our target, but I was keeping you up to date at that point on day-to-day decisions. And why we did it a day earlier than the plan. Well, just so much misinformation out there at the time. At least there seems to be a bit more control on the actual information these days, and with debate over the political information, as always, unfortunately. But I really can't say enough about how our faculty and staff have stepped up to make this transition. My main concern, continues to be, I'm sure we have hundreds of students out there who just aren't suited for distance learning for whatever reason, and are going to be left behind. And I'm afraid that's going to go on for a while. The people on the rooftops, people on the rooftops today are those without health insurance or access to good health care. But next to that, whether K-12 or higher ed, those without access to the technology are going to be more behind than ever, sadly, as a result of this. And as a community college person, that's probably my biggest worry going forward as it pertains to our mission. But as far as our faculty and staff, stepping up, and most students stepping up to do what they have to do, it's really been encouraging to see. And people still learning. I got some notes from faculty last night based on my update yesterday, which I'll send you after this. I asked people just to share some personal information, if they were willing, and just hearing what folks are going through, both on a personal level, and faculty sitting up on their computers and recording lectures and putting them out 2 or 3 times a week or weekly or whatever. It's really encouraging to see, and we're just going to have to do more of that. My son's a senior at Forks, as you all know. He has one teacher who's actually been teaching since they went out. Everybody else, they post assignments. He has an iPad. He's had an iPad since 6th grade. So that's not a problem. But I don't know, 20-30% of their kids, Windsor kids, don't even have the technology at home to do it. So he's been keeping up, but one teacher who's actually teaching. Now, K-12 was never situated for this, so you can't blame them. The rest post assignments, and a week later you turn it in. That's it. There's no teaching for all of his other classes except one. She's one of our adjunct English professors, and she learned through SUNY Broome how to teach online, and she's doing a great job. Thank God there's the one, and thank God it's English. I wish his math teacher was there. But this is a real big shift for the nation, and it's going to have a lasting impact on the whole distance education world for a long, long time, because a lot of K-12 parents are getting a very bad taste in their mouth about what distance learning is like, sadly, and certainly some higher ed parents as well.
Kevin, are they going to be able to get high school diplomas?
There's not been any official talk about that, but I would think so. I mean, whether, they'll be able to go back to school for, at the end of May or early June to finish up, and whether they'll have any kind of commencement ceremonies in the summer, who knows? But they've not.
I hear they have no, they're not gonna do Regents exams, right?
They aren't. They've already dropped the Regents exam. All the SATs have been canceled.
Morning, Margaret. Nice to have you on the call.
Took me a while to get here.
We
That
already
kind-
went through item 1 and item 2. We're on the president's report under 3.
Okay.
Kevin, that kind of puts a damper on kids trying to get into college for freshman year.
Yeah, there's going to be lifelong impact for for some of this. There's no question about it. But a lot of institutions have already said they've dropped the SAT requirement. They're not going to have any choice. I don't know whether they can, when kids have taken the PSATs, whether they can use those. But they're fairly dated. By the time you get to be graduating. But a lot of institutions announced a while ago that they dropped the SAT requirement. It's going to be a crazy year. And Jason, and a whole unrelated meeting, a group that the county recovery task force that I'm on, Jason Andrews happens to be on it, representing K-12. And, he spoke about the summer slide in English and math and reading. He said, we're going to see a summer slide, both K-12 and higher education freshman classes are going to see a summer slide in English and math and reading like we've never seen before.
Dr. Drum, did the campus go to a letter grade, or we go to pass fail? Or is it up to
Penny
Professor?
can answer that, but it kind of depends. You're muted, Penny. There you go.
There you go. Yeah, we're actually in the process right now. We went through the governance process, and we are going to allow students to elect a pass fail after the grades are submitted. We'll give them a week to do that. There's some programs that will be excluded. Health sciences, for example, actually has to keep their grades, but most of them are going to be able to opt in to take the pass fail as opposed to the letter grade.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mm.
Do you have anything else, Dr. Drum?
That's it. We can get a bus and go to Georgia on Friday and get our hair cut.
Thank you, Dr. Drum. 3.2, budget and finance, Michael.
So you have the monthly forecast, which is similar to last month. We're projecting a balanced budget. The only condition is really whether the state reduces our state aid per FTE. As I mentioned earlier, SUNY's requesting 2 scenarios, a 10% cut, which would translate to about a $1.4 million cut to state aid, and a 25% scenario, which would translate to about a $3.5 million state aid cut. So absent either of those events occurring, we feel pretty confident, notwithstanding COVID-19, that we should maintain a balanced budget for the current fiscal year.
I'm confused. Kevin, you talked about getting $4 million from the PPP.
Yes.
Where would that go?
Confused is the best way to put it, Nick. There have been so many guidances put out, but first by the feds, and then the Department of Ed, and SUNY, and now we're back to waiting for the Department of Ed to the National Department of Ed to put out more guidance. I was on a call with the presidents, late yesterday afternoon, when the community college presidents were all, totally confused at this point as to what it can be spent on. So we're waiting for more guidance for about the 5th round. And essentially half of it is emergency funding for direct to students. About 2.1 or 2 million of our funds is supposed to go to direct to students for emergency funding. What constitutes emergency funding, we're still waiting on. It was pretty nice. The original notice put out by the feds was pretty broad and pretty flexible, and we could all live with that. But you can imagine, then you go through the National Department of Ed's guidelines, and then SUNY gets it and puts their guidelines, and and they conflict, and it's just a mess. So we've still got to wait and see. Then the other 2.2 million is supposed to be for, institutional emergency expenses. So we got to see what really counts in the rules for institutional emergency expenses. So that's kind of where we're at. It's wait and see. As soon as we hear, fairly definitively how we can use that money, you'll be the second ones to know.
Is it part of the PPP?
Yes. Well, the CARES Act.
Oh, that's separate.
The CARES
from the
Act.
PPP. Yeah, that's separate.
So it's separate. Yeah.
Because the PPP is 75% has to go towards payroll and payroll related expenses.
Right. Yeah. No, this is not for payroll.
Okay.
I would guess, for instance, the laptops that we got on loan from SUNY. SUNY did a great thing. They I don't know how many thousands of laptops they were able to buy from the two big suppliers. And we got, I think, 150 of them or something. We just threw our hand up and said, through IT and said, send us 150. We had a number of them, but very outdated, particularly for students who don't have the technology at home. But we've given a lot out to staff and faculty. But at some point, we either got to decide we're going to pay for them or send them back. So I imagine the emergency money could be spent on something like that. That'd be a pretty logical institutional expense, but we don't know for sure yet.
Here's a stupid question. Can you take some of the old ones if you keep the new ones and give them to students that don't have anything at home?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Depending on what their needs are and what capability they have at home, particularly for internet. I mean, that's the main issue. We can find a way to provide, portable computing to students by hook or by crook. And if we were to require it, say for some classes, we can even get it into their financial aid as an additional like lab fee, tech fee, kind of thing per class. But if they don't have internet at home, it's not going to help them very much. And we know that 10 or 12% of our students anyway don't have internet at home because they either live too far out and can't afford satellite, don't want satellite, or they just simply can't afford it. And as I said, Windsor, Jason said 30% of his kids have no internet at home out in the farm country.
Okay. Any other questions on the budget for Michael? Okay, seeing none. 3.3.1 facilities update. Dave?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
All right, good. So you have our report in front of you. With respect to culinary, we're in the process of finalizing change orders and contract extension claims. And in fact, Anthony, I'll be getting an email out to you and the subcommittee with respect to those contract extension claims and what we feel is legitimate from a cost standpoint for each of the contractors. We're still receiving furniture and equipment downtown, even though the building is closed. I put the next one in there, Anthony, for your benefit. We are going to try to go all green down there with battery operated and electric operated grounds maintenance equipment. So I'll keep you posted on how that works out. I think I've already mentioned this in the past. We are doing a roof snow and ice load analysis for the southwest corner of the roof because I'm concerned about ice and snow melting and falling off. The sidewalk is in pretty close proximity to the building at that point, and I've got some concerns. So we want to see if we put some snow guards up there, what the roof load would be.
Hey, Dave, instead of doing snow guards, can we put a snow melt system there so it all melts and just water drips?
Yeah, actually, we will look at that as well, Anthony. We're going to look at that both on the exterior and perhaps the interior as well. We may be able to heat that section or limit the heat in one location so that it does melt. Yeah, so that's all part of that equation.
Yeah, I just think that's, the building's been there for the last 100 years. I doubt there's an issue with the loading. The issue has to be more with just, you're concerned about falling ice. So if you put a snow melt system on the section you need, they're relatively inexpensive and that should mitigate your issue significantly.
Correct. I don't disagree. I agree. Other notable on-campus activities. So we were issued COVID-19 contractor guidelines from SUNY Capital. And as you can see, we hope to be able to continue to progress the 3 projects that we have listed. The Decker Student Center roofing project, which has been on hold for the winter, but I'm waiting for for the contractor to provide me with the outline of how they will be able to proceed using the guidelines that we've given them. The same thing for the electrical vault and the same thing for the telecom dish on top of the AT building. The next two, the electric vehicle charging stations are on hold per NYSERDA. NYSERDA has pretty much put a hold on all of their work for the time being, and we'll see if and when those restrictions are lessened. The other one is the campus services music upgrade. That was going to be the major project that we would have had ongoing this summer. However, once the construction guidelines came about and the COVID-19 emergency came about, we pulled that back. That was actually being advertised for bid, and it looked like we had a pretty good interest, significant interest from a lot of the local and not so local contractors in the project. So it's disappointing at this point, but as we move into the upcoming weeks, we'll see what is going to be lifted or at least modified from a construction standpoint. So I think that's probably the most frustrating thing for me is we had a series of pretty good projects slated for the summer, and right now it's going to kind of be hit and miss depending on what the guidelines will allow. Also, as part of the fact that the campus has been shut down, or for all intents and purposes shut down, we're working with public safety to evaluate our current building access procedures. I know Joe O'Connor has been frustrated in the past that we've got so many keys out there and just about everybody has access to everything. So we're taking a closer look at access procedures as part of this part of the shutdown that we're in. Two other projects that are ongoing or nearly completed. Our northern intersection, I've mentioned this in the past, the DOT finally came in and is finishing up the pedestrian crosswalk project, but attached to that is improved drainage. We didn't have to put a DI in. We regraded the area and put some additional asphalt in, and hopefully we can direct water to an existing swale and a drainage structure. And then the installation work for the 3 BC Transit bus shelters is underway. The pads have already been poured for those 3, and within the next couple of weeks, I think you'll see the placement of the shelters themselves. So that's another very positive project that's nearing completion. And then we've talked about the next listing of projects, and I don't think any of those are new to anyone, but we'll be looking at getting either RFPs together or design contracts together to begin to progress a number of those over the next few months. Our space utilization study done by Sightlines, we still anticipate presenting that to Executive Council next week, but I have to finalize the day and the time with Diana. We had a conversation yesterday. And that's the extent of my report. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Hey, Dave, I just have one question. When you said finalized change orders being reviewed for contracts, extensions, cost claims, is there going to be an additional request for change orders for that project over and above the 21.5?
No. Actually,
Okay.
Our expectation, Anthony, is that we're going to have some significant savings both on the change order side and on the contract extension cost side.
Okay. Any other
And one other
questions?
thing I'll share, and you know, maybe some of you are as frustrated as I am about it. So my son's in his senior year at Clarkson, and you know, he's finishing up his last 4 courses online. They've scheduled their graduation for August. I mean, hopefully that's going to happen. No one there has been able to go back to get their belongings yet. They're still locked up in dorms. And it's kind of a frustrating time as it is for seniors in high school. It's just as frustrating, perhaps even more so for seniors at college because, you know, of the job thing and all that. Now, luckily, he's got a job with CNS Engineers. He's going to be starting in May, but it's a pretty tough situation now, I think, for college seniors. And I just wanted to share that because, you know, there's a lot of people in the same boat that we are here. So,
Thank you. Any other questions for Dave?
David, I just had a question. I know we've been shut down, but before we were shut down, has the blue light phones been used at Carnegie at all?
no.
Okay, thank you.
I check their status every day, Nick. I get a report, and they, you know, they're functioning as they're intended to. But to date, we have not gotten any reports of any use on any of the 3 phones.
That's good.
Yeah, it is, I agree.
Okay, 3.3.2, human resource, Lynn?
Our report is normal for the month, a little bit smaller than usual, but nothing unusual for as long as activity goes.
Okay, thank you very much. Michael, I'm assuming 3.3.3 through 3.3.5 is just standard?
Yes.
All right. Does anybody have any other new business or questions prior to adjourning the meeting? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion.
Second it.
Moved by Nick, second by Margaret. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Have a great week and be safe.
Take care, everyone. Be
See you
safe. See you Thursday.